Hey guys, this is John here in Los Angeles with the Alpha Channel update for Sunday, August 11th, 2024. And today we are looking at 017, and we're going to look at the last page of 016 because this is relevant. Allen Ginsberg and William S. Burroughs make special guest appearances in this episode, in this issue, which is drawn in this very Harry Crumb sort of style. You guys can see the pages are kind of, it's only been read once, so forgive me. I want to point out this bit at the end. This is a true story. So William S. Burroughs accidentally killed his wife in Mexico City when he either dropped a silver-plated revolver or pistol, or when in a William Tell test of marksmanship, in an attempt to shoot a glass off the top of her head, which he had apparently done before. He did this while he was drunk and shot her in the forehead and killed her. So William S. Burroughs, much like Hemingway, Robert E. Howard, dare I say William Faulkner, a lot of famous writers, Samuel Clemens, their backstory is a little, things didn't always end well or go well. And a lot of famous artists today have similar... You can't say that the people suffer for their art. People suffer. People go through hell. And famous people go through just as much hell as regular people. Just they're famous, so we hear about it. So that guy, he must have lived with that every day, the rest of his life, trying to wake up. And it's like that movie, Manchester by the Sea. So this is episode 17. This episode is about Edward Zero and William S. Burroughs, which is why I did that little bit of research and looked him up to see what was true about it. Here we have Edward and a Muslim girl that he liked at school. And then we have Edward in the bacterial hangar where he's getting dosed with mushrooms, and William S. Burroughs in and about New York City. In Los Angeles. I think he was in Los Angeles for a while. More Edward and his son. This is really about sons and fathers asking their sons for forgiveness, going back to the beginning of time when mankind first picked up a rock and the evil spirit that is war. And the problem isn't war, the problem is hunger. War has existed as long as hunger has existed. It's kind of like saying that you have crusades because you have church. No, you have church because you have crusades. Church is like the safe space of the past. No one's allowed to talk. You let the kids get up and sing. You burn some incense, and then you get to go in there and decompress. Look at the pretty paintings. Church is what you get to go do after a bunch of time at war. You don't have to be on the job site. You don't have to be at home with the wife and kids. It's like a respite. So this is a flashback to Edward's birth when he was cut from his mother's stomach on the border between Bosnia, Serbia, whatever, Czechoslovakia, whatever that war was in the early 90s, Herzegovina. I don't know. I should know. I know some people who were there. This page I almost don't even want to show. But I do have to say about this issue, I want to kind of flip back through this. And I've discovered that it doesn't really work to hold it up in front of my face because I cut off the audio. I've done this enough times, 70 of these. It's getting pretty annoying. This is the best illustrator so far. Give me a moment to look up his name. Robert Semmelin. This is the best illustrator they have hired so far in this comic. If he had done every comic, it would have been so much better. Look at this page right here. I really like how these bullets down at the bottom become bodies up here. And then you've got Uncle. You've got every famous image. I was looking for the little girl. She's right there. I saw her the other day in a Banksy image with Mickey Mouse on one side and Ronald McDonald on the other. That one was really rough. Let me hold this up again to see if you can see it. It's pretty brutal. I don't know what I think about these flat colors. I don't know if that's what I would have done. But I am a big fan of this illustrator. I wish he had done the whole series so far. I guess that's Patti Smith. I don't know. She's named Patti. I don't know any famous singers named Patti. I know I've heard of Patsy Cline, but I don't know her. I mean, I never listened to her music. I think this is where we left off. Edward and his mother. And this is really good. See how he's like a ghost? So yeah, that's the end of this one. And then we get gray, red, white. Maybe that symbolizes going to heaven. Symbolizes the second and last Zero book. And we also have Wildwood Tarot, Ancestor, and the Hooded Man. Only one more of these after today. Today is the Nine of Stones tradition. And most traditions, well, traditions are going by the wayside. My grandparents had traditions. My parents had traditions. My family has almost zero. Not just me, but I mean my brothers and sisters, their extended family. Today's episode, okay, so there's a few things about this book that I want to talk about. Head hopping in comics and microcosms and ensemble comics. So this is kind of very much head hopping in that they show Edward Zizek, they show Sarah Clark, Cook, they show Edward. They show Edward's mom, although she's not really, a character. Ginsburg Nova, he's just a supporting cast character. But that is a level of head hopping that if you didn't do that, one of the things they want in novels, they, meaning the literati, the governing body of that medium, and there is one for painting, and there is one for novels, and there's one for comic books. There's accepted tropes, and there's, dare I say, forbidden tropes, and then there's contemptible tropes. The contemptible tropes won't get you blackballed, but they will get you scorned and sneered at. And they include excessive flashbacks, bad description, bad dialogue, bad characterization, bad illustration, right? Especially in comics. In novels, it's excessive head hopping. So if you do an ensemble, now it's different in television and film. In television and film, this is not adhered to. And in plays, the rule is every scene has a main character. The plot is driven around, hinges around that main character. Every scene is a mini play. Every scene has its own beginning, middle, end. Every scene is its own short story. And in this way, they get around the head hopping rule that novels stuck to. But when you go to a novel like the Iliad, that rule didn't exist. Now, it did in the Odyssey. The Odyssey it stuck directly to Odysseus. But the Odyssey had all kinds of fiction in it, where the Iliad only had gods and goddesses, which are basically mental projections, right? So head hopping in comics, and comics is a gray area because it's part TV, part literature. And you can get away with it more, like this one shows it. But the one I'm working on right now, I can only get away with it in as much as I stick to the ensemble cast. I don't do scenes with supporting characters yet. Unless they become main cast characters, they don't get solitary scenes. They can only have scenes with the supporting team. Like it would be like the A-team. Occasionally in the A-team you get scenes with the bad guys, right? But you don't get scenes with last episode's bad guys. They're not even in the show. So most of the scenes are built around the characters interacting with the bad guys and interacting with the supporting cast. It's kind of the same rules with comics. Loosely, it's the same rules with novels now. With the Warhammer series, you get protagonists and antagonists equally. They get equal screen time, which is fine. It's the best way to tell the whole story. And even then, they're jumping around because they're telling an entire war, and every general and all of his subordinates are main characters in every scene that they're in. So that's a lot of antagonists and protagonists. What I'm doing is a little different. It's a little more limited. So, yeah, I mean, that sort of stuff matters. It matters in as much as I'll use spin-off stories to do. So I'm doing a story basically about a cultic G.I. Joe. It's like if the G.I. Joe team, if you took like 5 members of the G.I. Joe team, or like 100 bullets, it's a 5-man team basically, right? 6-man team, 5 guys and a girl. 1 lead guy, 1 head surgeon, and then 4 supporting, like, muscle characters who all have different skill sets. So it's a 6-man team. And one of the guys is brand new. So it's a newbie to a 5-man team. And then they have a 7th character join, and then the 7th character brings in someone else, and then they have 2 other supporting cast characters, so we're at 9 now, and 10 actually, and 2 other supporting cast characters, but they've only had a scene, so they don't really count, but that's 12, and that's not even counting antagonists who've all had scenes, and that's a big thing. And now I could take the second group, of whom characters 7 and 8 to the main team, they have a whole other story that I have been working on for years, that I couldn't tell this story until this one was done. Once this story was complete in outline, I can take this G.I. Joe team, and this is really a spin-off story for the main body of the larger work that I started years ago, but it's all longhand. So because I have that as an iceberg, as a foundation, what Hemingway would call iceberg, I can tell this little capstone story for these 6 characters. It's really easy, and it's a lot of fun. But without this bigger background story, I couldn't do it. So, and it's all new. None of it's connected to Ashley Fox. She's in it, but only as a distant supporting character who doesn't come in until like the middle 2nd act. So, but I did want to mention these points about these writers. All were super successful as writers. But to be, as Bill Burr says, when you become successful young, the world throws all its traps at you. And there's no manual for how to deal with it. There's no manual for these guys who became superstars at a young age, like Johnny Depp or Mark Wahlberg or Arnold Schwarzenegger, attacked by a platoon of painted whores. And not just the women, but the salespeople, the agents, the lawyers, the merchandising guys, the guys who want you to do commercials in Japan, the guys who want you to do bad, low-budget Skinemax movies with great scripts, but no money. Like, there's no... And think about all the guys who've all been suckered by all of this. None of them got away. None of them got out clean. Stallone doesn't own anything of Rocky. He gave his soul for that. And yeah, he's Rambo and he's rich, but nothing, not even a point of a percent. Like that's Arnold. We all know what happened to him. Screw Your Freedoms is the tip of his iceberg. Johnny Depp, we all know what happened to him. Look at the culture. The culture did this to us, right? The culture war, which has been going on since before Kennedy was murdered. Culture war has been going on since before the end of World War II. Culture war has been going on since before the end of World War I. The culture war has been going on since before Tsar Nicholas was murdered in his basement with his family. Same people at the head of it today that were at the head of it then. Read the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. You all know what a Zionist is now. So all these heroes, all these guys who had it all, Robert E. Howard, the how of Conan is almost better than the what of Conan. The how of Conan is as important as the magic of what of Conan. that here was this great struggling writer. He had potential. He didn't know what he wanted to do. And one night in the middle of the summer in a heat wave, his screen door opens and a guy walks in with an axe, and he can see his shadow on the wall because the light's on the wall behind him. The guy comes in, the shadow's right there. And he's at his typewriter. The guy says, "You're going to write what I tell you to write, or I'm going to take this axe and I'm going to cleave your skull in twain." And that was the stories of Conan. So whether he was drunk or thought that would be a clever, paragraph to introduce the character, it works. It works every time. That's what should be at the top of all the comics before the whole bit about between the time of the rising of the sons of Ares, the sinking of Atlantis, and all that other stuff. You know what I mean? But yeah, so stories, for me, stories are everything. I'm a fiction addict. I did my chest workout today. I've been skating a little bit just to the car and back. I haven't had a big session in a while. It's been too hot. It's no excuse. I should have. But I've been writing like a fiend. And I have 45, 46, maybe 47 pages. I haven't done a word count today. But yeah, so yeah, I think I've said everything I kind of want to say. Spin-offs and braided chapters and all of that stuff in books, I don't like it. I can see why it has to be done. Sometimes I have my third novel for Ashley is twisted chapters. Braided chapters means 3, but these are just her and her father in the future and her in the past, her father in the past and her in our future and her in the future of that. And it's a back and forth that helps break up the stories. Both stories are kind of one note, and it helps break them up because the tension in the father story is like ticking clock story, and a ticking clock story in a book is constant tension with no relief in sight. The second act in a ticking clock story can really drag. Think about Speed. Think about that John Voight train movie. Think about Nick of Time. Think about any ticking clock movie. The second act is always fucking slow. And in a book, it's even worse. So, and then in the Ashley, her third bit is constant never knowing when the next, constant tension of never knowing when the next cliffhanger, the next surprise is going to happen because they're being hunted. And I'm trying to stay away from head hopping, but staying on the main character means staying with the main character's tension until it's relieved. And the only way to give the audience a break from that, Stephen King, I've read Stephen King do it. A lot of movies and TV shows will do this. It's too much so. Like 24, if you cut out all the president, the White House shit, and just had Jack Bauer, you could cut the whole season of 24 hours into 3 hours. And it would be awesome, but you could get rid of all the garbage, all the soap opera, just the video cameras rolling with pretty people talking in front of the camera. So yeah, sometimes it's good. You have to have a way to break up the tension if it gets too much for the audience. You can tell it's too much for the audience when it's too much for you as a writer. You can tell if you're an empath and not a psychopath. I think all of us are both to some extent, right brain, left brain. Right brain's the empath, left brain is the psychopaths. The left brain running the right hand, right brain running the left hand. This is the feeling side, and this is the, if it threatens me, kill it until it's dead, kill it again, and then clean up the mess. That's the left side. And the left side keeps you safe so you can keep dreaming, right? So you can keep smelling the flowers tomorrow. You gotta have balance. So yeah, I think that's all I want to talk about. It's kind of probably a long one for tonight. I'm about to get up and find out I didn't hit the record button. So I hope you guys are having a good summer. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.